In a museum basement in Istanbul, a clay tablet catalogued in 1907 has never been fully translated. It is an administrative document, the kind Sumerian scribes used for grain and labour. But this one records deliveries to a mountain, not a temple on a mountain. The mountain itself, listed as a work order, with crews, durations, and a material logged by weight. The verb the scribe used does not mean piled or raised. It means something else, driven by a term that appears once in all Sumerian writing. Stay with me until the end, because the mountain confirms the tablet. The tablet came out of the ground in 1907 during the third season of the German excavation at Farah, the mound that covers the ancient city of Shuruppak. It was one fragment among more than 11,000 recovered that year from the collapsed archive room south of the temple terrace. Baked, intact, 41 lines of text on both faces, written in the standard administrative script of the late 3rd millennium. The same script the scribes of Shuruppak used for barley disbursements, labour rosters, and the movement of wool. The excavation registrar assigned it catalogue number VAT 9128 and shipped it north with the rest of the season's finds. The field notes describe it in 7 words. Construction record, destination unclear, contains non-standard terminology. That description mattered. Destination unclear meant no context. Non-standard terminology meant no priority. No priority meant no translation. The tablet was accessioned into the Istanbul collection under a partage agreement, placed in a drawer in the basement of the Archaeological Museum, and the drawer stayed closed. It was opened once. In 1911, the Assyriologist Bruno Meisner examined VAT 9128 during a survey of the Farah material. He read the opening lines, confirmed the script as administrative, and entered a single comment in his survey ledger. Stone delivery text, destination written with the mountain determinative, contains term of unknown meaning. He did not translate the rest. He moved on to tablets with clearer historical value. He died in 1947. The ledger entry sat in the archive for over a century. One examination, one comment, one drawer. But here's what makes this stranger. In 2018, a doctoral researcher, photographing the Istanbul basement collection for a joint digitization project, imaged VAT 9128 as part of a routine batch. The photographs went into an internal database restricted to cataloguing staff. Within a month, one image had been copied to an independent forum where translators and structural engineers discussed ancient construction records. The thread analysing the tablet ran for 6 days. Then it was taken down. The researchers' database credentials were revoked, and the batch containing VAT 9128 was withdrawn from the digitization queue, citing conservation review. No conservation work was ever logged, but the photograph had already been copied, and what it showed was not a hymn, not a myth, not a king boasting to his gods. It was a logistics document. That is the detail that changes everything about what comes next. Sumerian administrative texts are the driest documents ever produced by human hands. They record quantities, dates, work gangs, and deliveries with the precision of a modern shipping manifest. They do not exaggerate. They do not describe miracles. A scribe recording wool did not embellish the wool, and VAT 9128 is written in exactly that register. The language of inventory applied to a mountain. The tablet lists deliveries of stone measured in gun, the Sumerian talent, in quantities that total more than 4,000 tons across the recorded period. It lists 2 named overseers. It lists a work duration of 140 days. It lists a destination written with the determinative KUR, the sign Sumerian scribes placed before mountains and foreign highlands. Not before temples, not before platforms, before landforms. The deliveries were going to a mountain, and the mountain was the project. Then comes the operative line, where every comparable construction text in the corpus uses the standard verbs for heaping, piling, or raising, verbs that appear thousands of times in the administrative record. VAT 9128 uses none of them. Not once. The verbs of construction are absent from the entire tablet. In their place, the scribe wrote an explicit negation. The stone was not heaped. The standard verb appears exactly once, and only to deny it. And then the scribe recorded what was done instead. The line reads, approximately, that the rock was made to become one was joined into itself, driven by a term that has no translation. One word, a noun marked with the determinative Sumerian scribes attached to instruments and mechanisms, not to rituals, not to gods. A mechanism word, and that word appears on VAT 9128 and nowhere else. Not in any other tablet from Farah, not in the archives of Ur, Nippur, Girsu or Umma, not in any lexical list. And the Sumerians compiled lexical lists of everything, thousands of entries defining their own vocabulary for future generations of scribes. This word is not in any of them. One tablet, one term, no parallel. 3 scholars have engaged with the term since the photograph circulated. The first, a retired Assyriologist in Heidelberg, rendered it in a 2019 forum post as binding instrument, uncertain, and declined further comment. The second, in an unpublished 2020 conference paper, classified it as a hapax legomenon, a word appearing exactly once in all known literature. Impossible to cross-reference, impossible to verify. The third, a curator familiar with the Istanbul collection, described it in private correspondence later leaked as a technical term from the vocabulary we do not possess, not partially recovered, not possess at all. Consider what that means. A shipping clerk does not invent vocabulary. A scribe recording deliveries writes what the work order says. The term on VAT 9128 was not poetry, it was a line item. Somewhere in the administrative machinery of Shurupak, that word had a fixed, functional meaning. The name of the thing that joined 4,000 tons of rock into a landform without heaping it. The scribes who wrote it knew exactly what it was. The 2 overseers named on the tablet supervised its use, and every other trace of it, every duplicate record, every inventory that should have listed it, every lexical entry that should have defined it, is gone. The word survived in one basement drawer by accident, filed under destination unclear, read once in 1911, and buried. Meisner's ledger contains one more line about VAT 9128, written in a different ink, added at some later date he never specified. It reads, "Compare against the rock before publishing." He never published. Nobody compared, but the instruction stands as the obvious next step because a claim written in clay can be checked against evidence written in stone. If the highlands of the ancient Near East are natural, the rock will show natural formation. Slow deposition, tectonic folding, the deep signatures geology can read at a glance. And if the tablet is right, if the rock was not heaped but joined, the stone will show something else entirely. A different signature. A signature no natural process leaves. The tablet exists. The photograph exists. The term exists, sitting in one line of administrative Sumerian. That much is documented. What follows is the rock's answer, measured by engineers rather than historians. And the rock does not agree with the textbooks. The tablet breaks into 3 components, and the first is the process itself. The operative line of VAT 9128 uses a verb construction that Sumerian scribes reserved for state changes, not tool actions. When a scribe recorded the piling of earth or the laying of brick, the verb carried the determinative for implements. When a scribe recorded smelting, fermentation, or the firing of clay, the verb carried a different marker. The marker for transformation, for material passing from one condition into another. VAT 9128 uses the transformation marker on rock. The scribe was not recording that stone was stacked. The scribe was recording that stone was changed. The distinction is not interpretive. It is grammatical, built into the writing system itself, and it appears in the tablet's own words. The rock was not heaped, it was joined into itself. The second component is a preparation. The tablet lists a substance applied to the stone before the joining. A compound the scribe calls esir hara, a term partially readable as bitumen mixed with a mineral additive the text specifies by weight. 3 measures of the additive per work session, delivered in sealed jars, logged like any other supply. And here the clay meets the ground, because chemical analysis tells us what a compound like that leaves behind. In 2006, a material study published in the Journal of the American Ceramic Society examined core samples from the great limestone masses of the Giza Plateau and reported something the authors themselves called anomalous. Portions of the stone showed amorphous silicate phases, chemical structures that do not occur in naturally deposited limestone. Natural rock is crystalline through and through, ordered by millions of years of slow formation. The sampled material contained regions where the mineral structure was disordered, glass-like, the signature of material that had been fluid and then set. The study was contested, defended, and never resolved. The tablet records a binding compound delivered to the stone by weight. The stone records a binding phase that geology cannot place. A supply log and a lab result 4,000 years apart, describing the same chemistry the same way a parts receipt and a materials report confirm what a structure was made of. But the third component is where the tablet runs out of words we can read: the power source. The line states that the joining was driven by the untranslatable term, and attaches to it a phrase rendered approximately as the heat that does not burn. The word for heat is Standard Sumerian, used for ovens and for the sun on brick. The negation is explicit: a heat with no fire behind it, no fuel, no smoke, no flame, a warmth that came from the mechanism itself, continuous and sourceless. That is what the scribe wrote, a burning that nothing visible was burning. Now set the tablet aside and read the rock, because the rock has been sampled and the measurements are on record. When stone forms naturally, it carries an unforgeable signature. Sedimentary rock shows bedding planes, layers of deposition stacked in order, fossils sorted by age, density gradients that follow gravity. Igneous rock shows cooling structures, crystal sizes that record exactly how fast the melt solidified. Geologists read these signatures the way accountants read ledgers. The signatures cannot be faked and cannot be hidden. Every natural process leaves them. Every natural process. Portions of the ancient highland masses named in the delivery routes of the pharaoh texts do not have them. Petrographic sections taken from survey cores in the northeastern ranges, examined in a 1997 structural geology report and by independent analysts since, show boundary zones where the expected bedding simply stops. Layers that run continuous for the kilometres arrive at an interface and end. And on the other side of the interface, the rock is homogeneous. No bedding, no sorting, no gradient. Uniform stone, dense and undifferentiated, fused to the layered rock along a boundary clean at the microscopic level. A join, not a fold. The report classified the zones as undetermined contact anomalies and recommended further sampling. The further sampling was never funded. There is a category of process known to modern engineering that produces homogeneous stone: geopolymerization. When crushed mineral is mixed with a chemical binder and mild sustained heat, it sets into synthetic rock, dense, uniform, and structureless, because it never formed in layers. It was placed as slurry and joined into itself. Modern geopolymer concrete used today for industrial flooring and precast structures carries precisely this fingerprint. No bedding, no crystals of slow formation, amorphous silicate phases throughout. The anomalous zones carry that fingerprint. A compound delivered in sealed jars written in clay. A binding phase that geology cannot place written in stone. The two records describe the same event. And here's what makes this stranger. The volumes do not balance. In 2002, a quarry survey attempted to reconcile the stone quantities in the regional administrative corpus with the extraction sites those texts name, cutting and hauling 4,000 tons of rock leaves evidence, quarry faces, spoil heaps, haul roads, the arithmetic of removal that field surveyors can calculate. The survey found the source is deficient by a wide margin. Thousands of tons of stone are logged as delivered, and the quarries that should have supplied them show extraction scars for only a fraction of the total. The material arrived somewhere. It did not visibly leave anywhere. Stone that is quarried leaves a hole behind. This stone left almost none. The tablet's arithmetic assumed stone that was made at the destination, not moved to it. The tablet's word was joined. The missing quarries agree. 3 signatures now align. Homogeneous rock with no formation history fused to natural stone along clean boundaries. Amorphous silicate chemistry matching a logged binding compound. A supply deficit that no quarrying operation can explain. All 3 are consistent with synthetic stone set in place. All 3 are inconsistent with every tool in the ancient inventory, and with every energy source the ancient world is known to have possessed. Because that is the wall, and it is worth stating precisely. Geopolymer setting at this scale requires sustained, controlled, continuous heat. Not a bonfire, a regulated thermal input held steady across days, the heat that does not burn. In modern practice, it requires powered curing systems, it requires energy, it requires an input. And in 4,000 years of excavation across Mesopotamia and every adjacent land, no such input has ever been found. No device, no residue, no depiction, no text. Except one line on one tablet, naming the mechanism with a word that appears once and translates to nothing. We can identify the output. The chemistry of the rock is legible, measurable, and matched to a known process. We cannot identify the input. The tablet names it. The name means nothing we recognize, and that gap between a process we can classify and a power source we cannot find is not a curiosity. It is the problem, and it is about to get wider. The geographic spread compounds the mystery. The three signatures, homogeneous rock without formation history, the amorphous silicate chemistry, the supply deficit, do not appear at one location. They appear across the ancient world at sites separated by hundreds of kilometers and by centuries. The terrace foundations at Baalbek in Lebanon, where single-place stones exceed 800 tons. The core masses beneath the platform at Jerusalem's oldest retaining courses. The undetermined contact anomalies in the northeastern highland ranges, named in the Pharaoh delivery routes. The disputed limestone zones of the Giza Plateau. Different civilizations, different languages, different gods. The same three signatures, in the same combination. At every site where mass exceeded what human logistics could plausibly move. One process operating across an entire connected world under a name that survives on one tablet. And the trade records support the connection. Sumerian texts document material shipments moving through the river and gulf networks, logged by weight and destination. Jars of Isir Hara appear in transit manifests from Shurapak bound for stations the texts call the Far Mountain Works. The compound moved, the method moved with it. Whatever joined rock at the Pharaoh destinations was joining rock at the western sites, because the fingerprint in the stone is not similar at these locations. It is identical, sampled, sectioned and matched. The same absent bedding, the same amorphous phases, the same missing quarries. What the museums don't mention is the temporal inversion. At every one of these sites, the oldest work is the finest, not the most recent, the oldest. The earliest placid masses show the homogeneous signature at its most perfect, boundaries clean at the microscopic level, volumes that make modern engineers recalculate twice. And then, century by century, the work did. Later courses at Baalbek are ordinary quarried block, full of tool scars and bedding planes, the honest work of bronze and muscle. Later Mesopotamian construction is brick, humble, stackable, human-scaled. Later Egyptian dynasties show progressively rougher stone, smaller units, more haulage evidence, more of everything that ordinary labour leaves behind. Technology is supposed to run the other way. Civilizations start crude and refined toward precision. This record runs backward. The finest work sits at the beginning, before the king lists, before the histories we can read with confidence. The capability did not develop. It arrived complete, operated at a level later generations could not match, and then declined in their hands, as if they were maintaining something they had not built. The tablet's grammar says the same thing. VAT 9128 does not describe an invention. Its verb forms are inherited object constructions, the language a scribe used for temple property received from a predecessor. Something received, something passed down, something that came from a source the tablet does not name because the scribe had no word for where it came from, only the one word for what it was. Now here's where it gets active, because there is a place where the process stopped mid-motion, and you can still stand on it. In the quarry field at Baalbek, 3 cut monoliths remain in the ground. The largest, documented at over 1,600 tons, is the heaviest worked stone on Earth. It lies where the work ended, partially separated from the bedrock, its finished faces already dressed to final tolerance. The mainstream account holds that the block was abandoned as too heavy to move. But the surfaces tell a different sequence. The dressing is complete on faces that would be inaccessible after extraction. The separation channels continue past the point where a transport decision would have stopped them. The work proceeded in an order that assumed the mass was not a problem, and then it stopped. Not gradually, instantly. The final surfaces at the point of abandonment are as precise as the first. There is no deterioration curve, no sign of a supply running out, no sign of crews tiring, no sign of a method wearing down. Full precision, and then silence. 1,600 tons of stone mid-operation, and no recorded reason, and no later attempt to resume, and the stoppage was not local. This is the fact that removes every comfortable explanation. The homogeneous signature ends everywhere at once. In Lebanon, in Mesopotamia, in Egypt, at every site that carries it, the fingerprint vanishes from the record within the same narrow horizon, and everything after it is quarried block and brick. If a technique is lost in one place, it persists in another. If one workshop fails, a rival workshop continues. That is how knowledge dies. Unevenly, in patches. This did not die unevenly. It ended uniformly across hundreds of kilometres, across separate kingdoms, as if a single input had been withdrawn from all of them simultaneously. Not superseded, not forgotten, cut off. A method does not fade, everywhere at once. A power source is disconnected. The administrative silence completes the pattern. These were record-keeping civilizations, obsessively. The archives of Shurapak log barley to the quart and labourers to the individual name. The papyrus of Merer, found at Wadi al-Jarf in 2013, logs limestone deliveries to Giza like a modern shipping manifest. Quantities, routes, day counts. Everything was written down, and yet the largest masses, the most extraordinary output of these societies, generated almost no paper. No labour rosters for the crews that placed 800 tons. No tool inventories, no accident reports, and moving stone at that scale without accidents is not possible. At Farah, out of more than 11,000 tablets, exactly one VT 9128 touches the process, and it does so in a vocabulary that exists nowhere else. The heaviest work in the ancient world moved through these societies without passing through their bureaucracy, as if the operation ran outside the administrative system entirely. As if the two overseers named on the tablet reported to a chain of command that kept no other records, or kept them somewhere that has never been found. As if whoever operated the mechanism was in the civilization, but not of it. Follow the sequence the evidence draws. A capability appears before the historical record begins, already perfect. It operates across a connected world for an unknown span, leaving its signature in stone and almost nothing in writing. It is inherited by cultures that use it without fully understanding it, in the grammar of received property. And then, in a single horizon, it stops. Everywhere. Instantly. Leaving 1,600 tons abandoned mid-separation at Baalbek, and a lone tablet at Istanbul holding its name. That is what the stone and the clay agree happened. What happened next was not silence. What happened next was erasure, and the erasure has continued into the present day. The suppression runs in 4 directions. The first is ancient. In the late 3rd millennium, after the fall of the dynasty that controlled the southern archives, the temple records of Mesopotamia were systematically culled. Scribes of the succeeding administration copied forward what they considered essential: grain accounts, land titles, legal precedents, and discarded the rest. But the culling was not neutral. Lexical lists recopied in this period, the master vocabularies Sumerian scribes maintained for 2,000 years, show deletions. Categories of technical terms present in earlier list traditions are absent from the later copies. The section covering works of the mountain, attested by its heading in a fragmentary early list, does not survive in any later version. The heading survives, the entries do not. Someone copied the catalogue and left out the contents, and the word on VAT 9128 was almost certainly among the contents that were left out. The tablet in Istanbul survived because it was a field document, a work order that never entered the archive that got edited. It survived by being too minor to destroy. The second suppression came by fire. In 391 CE, the Serapeum of Alexandria burned, and with it the library annex that held the technical collections. The catalogue of that collection partially survives in later citations, and it lists a holding under the title on the setting of stone by the first builders, texts described by a 4th century commentator as translated from the old tongues of Babylon. Those scrolls burned. The catalogue entry survives. The content does not. Whatever bridge existed between the Sumerian technical vocabulary and the languages we can read went into that fire, and no copy has ever surfaced. The third suppression is modern, and documented in print. Napoleon's 1798 expedition produced the Description de l'Egypte, and volume 12 of the first edition, printed in 1813, contains the French engineers' observations of the Great Limestone masses, surfaces and joints they described as exceeding their instruments' capacity to explain. That section was removed from the second edition of 1817. The pages are listed by number in the index of the second edition. The content is absent. An index pointing to pages that are not there, in the most prestigious scholarly publication of its century. The fourth suppression is happening now. In 2003, a materials team applied for permission to core sample the contact anomalies in the Highland survey zones with standard geological equipment. The application was denied within 8 weeks, citing site preservation. A core drill takes a cylinder 2 centimeters wide. The risk was not the hole, the risk was the result. In 2015, a separate application was filed for non-destructive spectroscopic analysis of the Baalbek trilithon courses, a light beam and a sensor. The permit was declined, citing regional security, and was never reopened after conditions changed. In 2022, a European university team applied to rerun the disputed Giza silicate analysis on fresh samples under modern lab protocols. As of 2025, the application is listed as under review. 3 applications, 3 decades, 3 refusals or deferrals, and 1 consistent outcome. The measurements that would confirm the synthetic signature to modern standards, on the record, with institutional names attached, have never been permitted. And the museum in Istanbul, holder of VAT 9128, lists the tablet's digitization status as pending conservation review. The same designation applied in 2018, when the photograph escaped. 7 years of conservation review for one baked clay tablet that needs none. Now let me be clear about what is being claimed and what is not. I am not saying the Sumerians poured mountains from a recipe we could follow. I'm not saying industrial curing systems hummed in the highlands of the Bronze Age. The tablet does not describe anything we can fully decode, and honesty requires saying so. What the tablet shows is a work order, written in the driest register of the most bureaucratic civilization in the ancient world, denying that rock was heaped, and naming what was done instead with a term that appears once in 4,000 years of writing. What the stone shows is output, 3 physical signatures, homogeneous rock with no formation history, fused to natural stone along clean boundaries, silicate chemistry matching a logged binding compound, a supply deficit no quarrying operation explains, signatures that modern materials science identifies as the fingerprint of synthetic stone set in place. What neither the tablet nor the stone can show is the input. We can prove what process made the rock. We cannot identify what powered the process. In every excavated site on every continent, no equivalent energy source has ever been found. The mechanism is in the stone. The name is in the clay. The gap between them is the most important unanswered question in the history of technology. And every attempt to close it with an instrument has been filed, deferred, or denied. What we have to confront is what that pattern means. Evidence does not require protection from measurement. A natural formation explanation survives a core sample easily. You do not spend 2 decades declining a light beam unless the light beam returns the wrong answer. The refusals are not caution. They are the 4th signature, the behavioural one, and it aligns with the other 3, so take the inventory of what still exists. VAT 9128 is still in its drawer in Istanbul, its operative line still denying the heaping, its one word still untranslated. The contact anomalies are still in the highland cores, still classified as undetermined. The amorphous phases are still in the sampled limestone, still contested, still unresolved. The missing quarries are still missing. The trilithon is still in the wall at Baalbek, 800 tons per stone, still unmeasured by any modern instrument with a name attached. The 1,600-ton monolith is still lying in the quarry field, its final surfaces still as precise as its first, still waiting at the exact point where something stopped and never came back. The pages are still absent from the 2nd edition. The heading still sits atop an empty section of the lexical lists. The permit is still under review, Meisner wrote, "Compare against the rock before publishing and died without publishing. The comparison has now been made, informally, repeatedly, by engineers reading the stone against a scribe reading the clay, and the 2 records agree the rock was never heaped. Something joined it, something with one name in one line of one tablet, a name from a vocabulary that was deleted, burned, unprinted, and locked behind pending reviews for 4,000 years. The stone has been holding its half of the answer the entire time. The clay has been holding the other half. Someone has been making sure the 2 are never allowed to meet.